everybody, welcome back to Getting Ahead of Ourselves. I'm Allison.
We're back.
That's Kyle.
I'm Kyle.
Yeah. And today I'm mad about the fact that you can actually move the veins that are over your knuckles if you, like, clench your fists. You can, like, move the veins around.
Is that what our topic is about today?
No, it's not. It's
knuckle
not at
veins.
all. As per usual, I have a list
The future of knuckle veins.
I have a list of things. I have a list of 19 things, roughly.
Oh, that list got longer since last time.
It did. I wrote some things down. But you cannot pick 3.
Okay.
8.
Okay.
10.
10.
Can't pick 10. Or 13.
13. Okay. But I can pick anything else from 1 to 19.
I believe so.
Kind of curious about your new ideas, but then I haven't quite touched on your old ideas. Now the list longer, there's like a spot in the mid. There's like a little dip in the middle of just chaos, right? Like
no,
like
the whole thing is chaos from beginning to end. The dip in the middle is probably like easily like the most reasonable spots.
You think so?
Yeah, because I started off strong,
right?
Like normal good thoughts.
But then it went slowly downhill towards 13, right? And then you made more. You clearly added more later. Are those worse? Yeah. Are those more ridiculous? The new ones that you added?
Yeah, they're pretty ridiculous. They're pretty dumb. I've just read them and they're pretty stupid.
How do you feel about the fact that this podcast has slowly turned from us just discussing the future of things to me exploring what the hell you think the future is going to be like?
I knew this would happen. I'm not worried, as this is what was always going to happen.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. We tried this once. We were like, let's make a history podcast, but it was literally just going to be me trying to fathom what could have possibly happened during an event for which
that's true.
I don't know anything about. I
also kind of like that. Maybe we could do a spin-off version of this show where we just do a history edition.
Maybe we'll do
instead.
A Christmas special history edition of Getting Behind Ourselves. Which sounds not appropriate.
Behind the times. Something like that.
Getting us but back.
Yeah,
like
nailed
that.
it.
I think that's a good one.
All right, I'm going to say, now that we have 16 available, I'm going to pick 16.
Is it 16?
I like
it's
the
19.
number 16.
We have 19. We have 19 available.
Right, so 16 is one of those numbers, correct?
Okay, Kyle, all right.
Okay.
All right, so what if I told you, in the future, imagine everything is exactly as the way that it is. You can't be laughing. What if it's not funny? Now there's a buildup.
I'm already
They're
assuming.
expecting something. All right, Kyle.
Okay.
So we have to make this work. So everything's exactly the same. You, me, the future.
Sure.
But not a single person has a job.
Okay.
No jobs. Take jobs, crumple them up.
Interesting. No, I like this topic.
Volley them into the trash can.
This is good. This is also how every episode starts so far. It's like you go like you start this big thing. I'm like, oh dear God, what's happening? And then you bring up like something I've actually thought about multiple times, and I'm like, oh, all right, yeah. We can.
Have you thought about this one?
I have. Yeah.
I've never
How
thought
have
about
I
this
not?
one.
I'm a YouTuber. Yes, I've thought about this.
But the YouTube is. Well, I guess we have to define jobs, huh?
Well, yeah, so there's, yeah. Okay, so you're talking about a future in which supposedly automation has taken over everything we consider to be, like, grunt labor.
Let me clarify. I am talking about nothing. So
okay.
we can start on any premise.
What you reminded me of is the actual theoretical assumption that at some point, like, what we consider to be menial labor will no longer be required because it'll be cheaper to have robots do it and no one's going to pay human laborers anymore. And so people have speculated on like what happens when nobody has need for jobs anymore. And some people have thought like, oh, well, I guess everything just collapses, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe we reach some kind of weird future where we just kind of accept that we don't actually need jobs, and the concept of jobs is something that we made up in the first place because we needed factories to work. And what does it look like when people don't have jobs available? And I guess we have to decide whether or not people need to have a job in order to provide for themselves at that point. It's kind of what it comes down to, right?
See,
it's
that's interesting because you went like straight to robots. Let me press you though. Let me stretch the
well,
limits
I went
of your
straight to
mind.
robots because in real life, that's the thing that will end up making us not need jobs.
Let me mind massage you for a second and see if we can get somewhere else.
Well, yeah, sure. Let's
Assuming
go ahead and watch
robots-
this off the train's going at a steady pace, and we don't want that. Let's rock it back and forth and see what happens.
You need to calm down. Sometimes these are just normal podcasts of us thinking about things. It's not always squid
That's
people.
what I'm doing.
I'm just letting you know. All right, okay.
Okay, well now say what you're gonna say.
Okay,
and
now
we'll see
all right. So no robots.
Okay.
That's not what happens.
Okay.
I don't know what happens. We have to talk about the future in which robots did not take our jobs, but also jobs don't exist. No jobs.
Well,
Can it function?
Why don't
Can
they
it exist
then?
Well, I don't know.
Who does the jobs? Who harvests the food? Who assembles our iPhones?
So if we just let's say like God, like he was like, hey guys, sorry I've been asleep for so long, and then just like removes jobs. He's just like, this is what I'm gonna come back and do. No one can, and jobs, let's define jobs. Jobs are menial labor for money, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So he's like, no, none of that. I don't know which part. I don't know if the labor goes away or the money goes away. Would we have to just have a constant flow of cash for that to exist? Is there a utopian society in which we define money as completely meaningless and then everyone just lives? Do we go back to trading rocks?
Let's establish some assumptions first, because I think trying to figure out how we get to this point is a different conversation and isn't quite as interesting or philosophical as the one we could have.
You're right. Let's go to the good point.
We're in a future where we don't have to do jobs. Doesn't really matter how we got there. It's probably robots because that's the way we're going now, right?
We
Things
can do
get
that.
so automated. We have AI being able to do all the stuff, even the more like seemingly complicated stuff that humans could do.
It's just probably better.
And so like there aren't cashiers, there aren't factory workers, there aren't warehouse workers, there aren't any of these like there aren't delivery drivers. None of the stuff that human beings have to do now is cheaper than having a machine do it, right?
Yeah.
Machines are taking care of everything. Nobody has to have a job. We're in
Right.
a society where it's probably socialist at this point, right? Like,
Would it be?
Let's make this a different episode by assuming we're already in a utopia, huh? Let's do that. Let's skip the part where we have to get to the utopia and inevitably fail, and just say we are in a point where we don't have to have jobs. What do we do? What do we do every day?
Okay, so one, I don't know if I agree with the idea that we just jump straight to the utopia, because the idea is we figure out what society does look like with this situation. You're offering a different topic, which is what does society look like as a utopia?
Of the topic. I'm just looking at. I guess we don't have to assume that. Like, we can also look into like, what are the implications of like finances, I guess, and like income and things.
Well, there's
like
a
that
lot
too.
of
But
things
it's
to
like,
think about.
What do you do with your? I guess the thing I'm most interested in is like, what happens if we have accepted? What is the world in which we've accepted that we don't all have to work 9 to 5.
Well, if there's no money like needing to be thrown around necessarily, do we all just get to have whatever the hell we want? Like, if companies are using robots to make all of their crap and stuff, and then no one has to worry about actually paying people, do people just get to have things? Like, since that removes most of the workforce, can we just have our own houses and not have to pay rent? That seems reasonable. Why not?
Yeah, when it gets into the economic stuff, I get to a loss. I don't know anything about economics.
I don't know what you plan on talking about. You talk
I'm
about
talking about day to day. Like, let's just say we don't. Again, like skipping past that part. What are we doing if we don't have jobs? At least like American
Video
Western
games?
society is defined by the career you have, right?
Yeah.
What happens when that gets removed?
I bet
who are you as a person if you don't? Like, when somebody asks, like, "Hey, what do you do?" The answer to that question is where you work.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I
Like
think this is interesting because, like, I think there's an argument to be made for, like, the Wall-E side. And then I think there's an argument to be made for, like, a social utopia side, which is essentially we all have time. So we're all hanging out with each other because it's the only thing that's ever really prevented us from, like, outside of crippling social anxiety.
Right.
We would go see our friends. We would go see our family. We had time. We would go to the water parks and the movies, and we would go do things and feel and travel.
Yeah.
Probably, like, we would do all these things because we don't have our jobs in the way of our time.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's one like
wonder
utopian kind of idea. But alternatively, we all stay home, become shut-ins, play video games, become obese, and
Right.
just live like lavishly, but
Well, I guess
in
this is kind of where it
isolation.
comes in like a social aspect, because I think because like right now, like capitalism tells you that if people don't have any jobs and any incentive, they are going to become exactly what you just described. It's like they're going to become drains on the economy. They're going to be lazy, sloppy citizens that don't ever have to give anything back and only take, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not really convinced that that is true.
No?
I think the idea of job. I feel like the idea of having a job and defining yourself by your career and sinking that much emotional investment into your job was pushed on people. I think that was marketing. I think it was something that was people were taught that's how they should be because the people doing the teaching needed them to come work in their factories. You know, like I think it
Random
was
question, though. Would the drug cartel hire robots?
I feel like. Is that what Chappie is about?
I have no idea. I didn't see it.
I'm gonna watch
Now
that.
I feel like I have no idea.
I just remember seeing him as like a robot with like a gang, and I don't know if that was like what that was, but
I don't know.
I've never seen the movie. I apologize if that's
See,
like way off base.
I think it can't be too much about that because the rest of everyone else in the movie is a human. Maybe like minus
True.
Chappie's love interest. I don't know if he has a love interest, but if he did, I think the only appropriate thing would be for it to
I
be.
think he's got like bros. I don't think he has like a love. He's a robot.
Does he have are there other robot bros in the movie?
I think it's only him. I don't know. I don't know why we're talking about this movie that we've never
I'm just
seen.
saying, if there's one other robot in the movie, it's his love interest. That is the
I
only
don't
way
think
that
it's
makes sense.
like Wall-E but drug cartels. I don't think that's the movie. Maybe it is.
I don't
I
either.
don't know. But anyway, I think the idea. I think right now, everyone in Western society right now, it is normal to the point of not questioning it that your job is one of the pillars of your life.
Yeah.
I think probably
You did not answer my question about the drug cartels.
I maybe drug cartels would hire robots. I don't know.
Okay, I just needed that.
I don't know if that plays into what I'm talking about.
Maybe that's his own topic.
I think historically that has not always been true.
Yeah.
I think if you look back far enough, that like having a job in the traditional sense that we think of it probably did not define you in every single culture the same way it does now. Right?
Yeah.
Like there were people who did a lot of things. There was like Leonardo da Vinci, you know, in Greece.
We'd all
obviously,
be
like,
artists.
He was a ton of things, right?
Yeah.
And then there were other people who were like what was a philosopher? You and I have talked about this before. Like, was that their job? Is that what they did every day? They get up and think and then write stuff down? Did they get paid?
This is verging on a topic that I already have that I don't want to
Okay,
talk about.
well, I won't go
but-
too far into it, but like the idea of job is that you go and you put in time in exchange for money, right?
Yeah.
If we're assuming that you don't need to do, if we're assuming that a world exists in which all the mechanical parts of labor are automated, then maybe we start going back to a time where it's like you are less defined by your value to a company that you work for and more by just like your individual accomplishments. And maybe that does turn more into people making art. Maybe it turns more into people inventing things, you know, learning, discovering. Maybe it's extended education. It could be a
Yeah.
lot of different things. And that's kind of why, like, at first I was like, yeah, I'm a YouTuber. It's like, I feel like we're getting into this era already where, especially with COVID having happened,
Yeah.
actually, I think that's a good example. I think we've experienced a little microcosm of that now where people suddenly got sent home
Yeah.
and had to figure out what they were going to do. And a lot of people started doing new stuff that they wouldn't have done otherwise, right? There's people who have picked up video editing or recording themselves doing
But they did
different
that because they
hobbies
needed
or-
money.
Not always. Sometimes they
I
just
mean,
didn't
some
have
people
anything
picked
to
up
do.
hobbies, but for the most part, people picked up hobbies that were ideally going to pay them at some point.
Well, right, but that's I guess that kind of comes down to like how you would define a job, right? Because the same
I'm
thing
not
is
timing this.
I am.
Okay,
We're,
good.
yeah, we're.
Oh, oops.
I checked when we started.
Okay.
We obviously being people who make stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like we've had people insinuate that we don't have real jobs, right? In giant quotes.
Yeah.
That's like a thing that you don't have. It's like a real. And then I've gone through phases of having to justify the validity of my job to people.
So
right?
what is the point you're ultimately making?
I guess the point that I'm ultimately making is that jobs are a fabrication in the first place.
Okay.
So if they were suddenly removed, I think it would be. I think probably we would be looking at a future that is more freeing and that would allow people to explore more parts of living and being a human and being less of a machine, I don't think people would turn into slug creatures that sit at home and do nothing all day. I think people would become more inspired to go out, do more things that they want, find other ways to socially contribute to, you know, the world around them than they are now when they're encouraged to just like pick a lane and stick in it, you know?
Yeah, so I think that that's a fair assumption to make, but I don't think it's fair to skip over the economy part of this conversation entirely.
It probably isn't. I just don't know anything about the economy, so I was
You don't
trying
have
to
to know anything about the economy. You know how capitalism works as an entirety. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, what if, like, the idea that we remove jobs, like defining jobs as labor for money or whatever, what if we just removed money and then people worked for other things? This might be communism, I don't know. But like what if you just did jobs and then got like a house? What if they paid people in houses or like...
Well, that just sounds like removing the middleman. You still have a job and you still ultimately end up with the same thing. They're just not handing you the cash and expecting you to make the decision of what to buy with it.
Well, I guess they're sort of opposite, because you were sort of talking about like getting rid of corporate America, like getting rid of corporate America jobs, but like people could still go home and make money.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if you're selling something you're creating or something like that, like you would still be making income from that.
Right,
I was
that's
also
hard.
skipping the part of like where is your base level income coming from in that situation.
Right.
I was like skipping past that part and kind of like looking more into like the implications of what do you do when you just only have free time.
Okay, so like let's just like pull this apart to the very beginning. We're on an island.
Okay.
Is there any way in any situation that like let's say there's 10 of us. We're all chilling. It's Dorm Monster.
Sure.
We're on an island.
Okay.
Is there any way that this society evolves without jobs? That's
an interesting question.
Is there any end utopia of that situation?
That's actually
like
probably
we all do things, but
Yeah.
when you're doing things for the greater community, which is what you'd have to be doing, like getting firewood doesn't pay you,
Yeah.
and getting shelter doesn't pay you, and getting food doesn't pay you, but you're all paying it towards each other.
I guess that's kind of
And
because
so
this
is
has
there any
definitely
way
existed,
to keep
right?
that going?
There have been like tribal structures.
Right.
I think as with basically everything, I think it's a mistake for humans to be in groups larger than like 100 people. Actually, the older I get, the more and more I think the bigger things get, the worse they get, like universally across
Disney
the
World.
board. What?
That's a good thing.
What are you talking? What?
Disney World is a good thing, and it only could have happened because more than 100 people came together.
That's not even kind of what I was talking about. And also, Disney World is owned by Disney, which is a perfect example of things getting way too big. So
That's a good point. Couldn't you just... I wish we could take the Disney out of everything.
I think if you're in like a tribe, right? If you're in like a tribal structure,
Yeah.
and you're not a group of school children in a novel that I had to read for high school, and you're not competing for $1 million, and there isn't a smoke monster attacking you, and basically all these extenuating circumstances that different media shoves into these scenarios doesn't exist, and you're just like a real life tribe of people on an island.
Yeah.
I think everybody does naturally get like a role, right? I mean, because you specialize, it makes
get good
the
at
most
things.
sense for people to like, hey, you're best at collecting wood, you can do that.
But
for
you don't
us.
get paid for
In
it.
exchange, right? That's because money got made later. Historically, money, like society didn't start and then make money and then assign jobs.
Yeah.
Society started and they were like, let's all mutually work together to make sure that we all collectively survive.
Right.
As long as we're all pulling our own weight and we're living, that's fine. As
Yeah.
long as we get the things done we need to do to live,
Yeah.
we're okay, and we can spend the rest of our time doing whatever the hell we want, I guess, right? Making
Yeah.
art, music, enjoying ourselves, talking.
Yeah.
And money doesn't start happening until...
You have to introduce another group, right, for money to start mattering? I don't know why money would start mattering within its own group if everyone's contributing.
So historically, the things that started happening were we humans were like hunting gathering tribes.
Yeah.
Right? And that was how they operated. They moved around, they found food, they all mutually kind of supported each other. Mm-hmm. At some point they figured out they could plant food.
Yeah.
Which, and arguably it was all downhill from there. But
Oh,
they
rip.
found out they could plant food. And Like initially, if it's like everybody's contributing to one pot, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
If it gets big enough, you start like trading happened before money, right? Like people were like, we're big enough now that we're not all necessarily contributing to the same pot. Some of us have stuff over here, you have stuff over there. I have firewood and you have some food. I'll give you this for that.
So
right?
here's how I think your thing falls apart. Stay with me.
I don't think I have a thing yet, but go ahead.
Whatever, you're not agreeing with me. So whatever's holding you back, I'm gonna switch it up on you.
What was your point again? What am I not agreeing with?
No idea. I think it's probably that money doesn't need to exist within a
This
society.
conversation got away from us a little bit.
Money doesn't need to exist within a society, and I think
That's
that
what you're saying?
yes.
That's what I'm saying too.
High five.
Cool.
I don't think we
Yeah.
conveyed that well.
I think
Okay,
the
but
only thing
no.
where we're differing is I'm saying money
Oh.
doesn't need to exist within a society if the society stays small enough. If it blows up, money becomes required because no one can agree on what the ratio of firewood to apples is. So you have to come up with a unified, like, what is the representation, what is the
But
unit of
why?
value?
You don't need to trade because it all goes into a communal pot, so you don't need to trade apples for. Are you saying like
Right,
the
but
apple
how do
guy is
you-
going
how
to be
do you
like,
divvy-
hey, I do way more work than firewood guy?
Yeah, maybe. He might.
Okay,
And how
so
do you
here's-
divvy up a community
No.
pot when
Here's
it's
how I'm
1,000
gonna.
people?
Here's how I'm gonna make that go away.
Okay.
Right. Here's how I know it will work. Minecraft. This is how I know it will work.
This is how I know it won't, so I'm fascinated to know what
Okay.
your experience has been.
In Minecraft, okay, well, you killed John, so that this isn't the problem. But otherwise,
Yeah.
right? So like the one guy who starts making problems, just like I said, no money. I didn't say no murder. Like different things. So like, but like in Minecraft, right? So I'm just like chilling, and I'm like, I'm gonna build a house, and then like Ethan's like, I'm gonna give you literally like 30,000 bales of clay to do
Right.
that. And I'm like, cool, I didn't do anything, but he was willing to do it. So the argument
Yeah, 'cause
that
he
like,
was generous.
yeah, but everyone is every time I play Minecraft with literally anybody. It's like they want to share,
Right.
they want people to contribute, they want people to be a part of it, except John, who's like secretly blowing up everybody's house or whatever. But again, just like on
John
John.
doesn't actually. That's not the issues with John.
No, it's not.
The issue
John is fine.
Really early. Yeah, the only thing just so people know what we're saying. I don't think we're just crapping on John. When I first made our first Minecraft server way back in the day, John was on the server way more often than we were.
Right.
So we would come back in the morning and there'd be like a new castle
Right.
where somebody had been wanting to build something else just because no one had communicated and John had stayed up the entire night while everybody else was sleeping.
But again, I don't think you
And
need
so we had to
money
come
to
up with
fix any of
these
these
rules.
things. You need prison and you need murder. But you do not need money.
Well, that's a different issue.
No,
and
see, I feel like
discussion.
it's the same issue because, like, we still don't have jobs, we still don't have menial work for money.
Here's the problem with your comparison: is you've only been on Minecraft servers with about 10 people. Which
I've
again,
also been on
feeds
with
right back
Rustage
into
and
my-
his friends. And
Yeah,
I've been on with.
Yeah, you haven't been on 100+ server Minecraft, like 100+ player Minecraft server.
I was on the one with like all of our fans in Dormonster that Inferno put together, and if anyone was gonna like fuck shit up, it was gonna be those guys. It's true. They did fuck some, but then they got removed. They got like, so you know.
Right, but you're saying they got removed and then applying that to real life. But in real life, you can't ban people.
You 100% can. It is called murder. You just like
No,
shoot
that's
him.
not banning. That's murder. They're
Yeah.
different things.
Right, okay,
When
right.
you
The
ban
idea is the
Inferno,
same.
he's not dead.
Okay,
It's
the
a
idea is the
different
same.
situation.
It's like, oh,
No, it's not.
You're gonna decide to like cause problems and ruin other people's livelihood. We're just gonna shoot you or send you like if you're Vikings, send them off in a boat into the middle of the ocean or something. I don't know, but
Okay,
just like
I guess here's my question then. Do you think people didn't do that at some point? Do you think that's not how things worked? Were they just
No, I
ice
think
people causing problems?
I think it is. I just don't understand how money ever had to get involved. Like what went wrong that we had to introduce money?
I don't. I feel like we're getting off the rails a little bit too much with this.
No, I
We're
feel like
making
I
this
feel like I'm
conversation
making a
too-
solid point.
Too broad.
I don't really
think.
feel like I've done that. Jobs, look, okay, you know, tell me what point you're trying to make because I don't understand what I've done. But But I feel
I
like
don't
I've
even know anymore.
turned society into a Minecraft server, kill the people that are causing problems, never introduce money, jobs don't exist. Now we all just collectively invest in things
Okay, look,
and into the server.
I think there's a
and
lot of
or
stuff
our,
we could hit on with this conversation, but the original thing that you started this with was, what if we didn't have jobs?
Yeah.
So reconstructing society is a big thing, and I don't think is going to necessarily get us there anytime soon, is the
Okay,
problem.
I see. All right,
If you're talking about a situation that clearly, if you were in a small functioning society, there are roles. You could say those were jobs, right? Mm-hmm. That has to be, like, because you have to be able to survive,
Yeah.
right? I would argue that the way we think of a job is different than that, and I would say those things are different just inherently.
How would you define them as different?
Because a job, the way we understand it, is something that you are expected to do. A job only exists because of how many societal expectations currently are placed on us.
Oh,
you
okay, I
have
see.
to have a car. You have to pay for car insurance. You have to pay for health insurance. You have to buy a house. You have to make house payments.
Right.
You have to have money stashed away for emergencies. You have to have all this stuff. If you don't have a job, you're screwed, right? It's like it's a system that's already been developed from the ground up, which we're not going to do during this podcast.
Okay, I see.
feel like I could dismantle the things that you're talking about, but it would take a very long time, and I don't think that's the point.
I don't know.
we're
I think
trying
your
to
point is valid, which
It's-
is that ultimately the future cannot exist like a Minecraft server, but we could start from a place and then maybe work up to a place of a utopia
hit.
that way.
I think, yeah.
I'm giving me
kind
the
of.
benefit of the doubt from you, so thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
So
I
okay,
guess.
so under your thing,
I think to start with, I think if you're looking at a small scale thing, I think having a role to keep the community alive is not the same thing in my mind as having a job by our current day definition.
yeah,
I think that I think that we've made jobs this whole weird, like, structure.
yeah,
That only exist because, quite frankly, because of capitalism, because
okay.
of corporations.
I think you've defined it well, so they're gone now.
So I think because of the way those work,
Yeah,
that eventually they probably will be gone the way that we know of them, because automation will take over.
okay,
And automation is going to do all the same things way cheaper, and so laborers aren't going to necessarily be required.
okay,
At that point, I think in a similar way, but like rubber banded the opposite direction, we will no longer have jobs anymore.
okay.
So then what happens once that's been removed? But now we are in a society of millions of people.
Yeah.
Right? I guess that's the difference.
Well,
because
but
your
I think-
role is not the same thing. You're not going to be expected to go get food.
See,
That's being taken care of.
I think your original point was fair, but I do think that if we are just going on like the linear timeline of like in the future jobs are gone, but we're all still the same, like
Yeah.
society and stuff. People are never not going to have the same obsession with money that's already been instilled in them. So
Well, and that's possible. I mean, I think there definitely is, like, that competition will always kind of exist, right? People always want more than what it is they have.
right,
But then maybe you won't be achieving that through a career in the traditional sense. Maybe it won't be so much that it's like you're working your way up to
well, and I think we've seen a little bit of this already, right? Not because jobs don't exist, but because there was a whole generation that grew up terrified of the 9 to 5 element, and so we became
Yeah.
influencers and creatives and YouTubers and artists and all that kind of stuff. And like people make full-time livings, like good livings, more than we make.
Yeah.
Like modeling on Instagram, right? Like we have
I
a
think
whole
there will be
generation
more
of people
that.
who did that kind of
Realistically,
stuff.
I think that's what
See, I think they'd argue that it's a job, though. I mean, I know under your, does it all eventually turn into a job?
I think a job is subjective. I think a job is a state of mind. I think if something
okay.
earns money, I don't think that makes it a job. I think if something contributes to society, I don't think that inherently makes it a job either. I think a job is just basically a task that
Yeah.
you're performing in exchange for money.
And that's
right?
the only reason you're doing it.
And right. I think that's it. You just defined it correctly. That's correct. That's the only reason you're doing it. A job
Sure.
is something you do because that's how you get money, and there isn't another reason you're doing it.
I
If
see.
you weren't making money, you wouldn't be doing that thing.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
I think
that's-
that's what it is.
Okay.
And I think yeah. Okay. I think we got there. Because
Okay.
that covers both. Because, right, like, if you're getting food, you're doing it so you can eat. That's not for money.
Right,
And if
right.
you're running a YouTube channel, if it's making money, great, but you're probably doing it because it was something you were interested in doing in the first place.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that's kind of what I do think that's probably what we're looking at more, is that you have people having the opportunity to do what they want, which feels very weird because you and I are coming off of being raised by the generation who were like, jobs are respectable. Jobs are what you should do. You should be doing things for money because that's just how it works.
Because you have to.
Bite the bullet, do it because that makes you responsible and an adult, right?
No, it's more so that like your wife doesn't die or your kids aren't starving or whatever.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. I was wondering if you were actually gonna like get there, but
I mean, that's kind of what it was though. It's like doing what you want is for people who already.
So how much time do we have left?
Have what they need. Very little.
Okay, so here's I think we got the closest we've ever been to a utopia in 2 different directions this time, whether Minecraft or yours. I applaud your utopian concept of the future and where jobs don't exist. It will not happen, but I like that you've done that.
Well, if just to knock us back down a peg, I think the only way that exists is if capitalism just fully takes over and Amazon owns the entire world and automates everything. So
do you want that to happen?
I think it's the best case scenario of the worst case scenario, so I'm not really sure where that falls.
Interesting. See, I don't think we'll ever fully employ AI because
honestly, here's the thing. I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to
I was just
interrupt
going to say because capitalism fully like functions on the idea that people feel like they will die, starve, or sick unless they like. Capitalism thrives on the oppression of people, and therefore
thrives on selling you things. That's really all they care about. Like as long as they're still making money, I don't think they care where it's coming from.
I think that's their goal, and I think that's a capitalist goal is to sell.
Yeah.
But I do think the workhorse of capitalism is making people feel oppressed and trapped so that they have to do those things. And I think that if you don't make people feel that way, then they won't feel as like that they need to buy the things that you're selling them the way you're selling them. And therefore, if we have a bunch of free-thinking people who have all the time on their hands and the ability to do anything, they will not cater to capitalism as well, and therefore we cannot have a robotic capitalist society.
I think those people will still buy things. As one of those people, I buy way more stuff now than I did when I had a regular job. So I'm not sure it would actually make the biggest difference, but maybe...
I'm curious. You know what?
What I can say for sure, surprisingly, I didn't think I would get to this point.
Okay.
But I think if I had to trade Amazon owning the world for the ability to freely explore whatever I want, do all the things that I want, become explore my own mental state and spirituality, and eventually just become fully Buddhist, then I would do it.
Oh my God.
Got it in there. I put the Buddhism in there.
Okay,
Do you like that? You can be Buddhist under capitalism.
Under American society where Amazon ultimately takes over, that is your greatest chance of becoming Buddhist.
Well, because it weirdly could offer a weird kind of freedom, I guess.
You know what? I'll let you have that. So that's it for today. I think we've done our best. It was messy.
It was a little bit messy, but
we did it.
We got somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. So we're out of time.
We're out of time.
Great.
That's it.
Thanks everybody for listening to that. It was the nonsense you've signed up for. As per usual, we've not let you down. And we will see you on the next podcast.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.